Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Not So Hardcore Gaming. I am your host, Jeremy, and today I have my friend Blaze.
Hello.
Today's topic is God of War 4. The reason I have Blaze here today is he grew up with the earlier games in the series, so he is more familiar with the characters and has stronger opinion towards this game. So he can say more than I can. Okay, the first part of today's podcast will be the visuals. Now, I love the visuals in this game. The character design is very fluid and looks quite natural, and even the lips syncing to the audio is sort of a given, but I think it is done extremely well in this case.
The visuals for me, like the character design was very nice. Like keeping Kratos looking the same with all his tattoos and stuff, and
But with a sexy beard.
with a sexy beard. You gotta love the beard. Atreus was very well designed. The characters were very well designed, and the base characters, I must say, the reskins of other characters were a bit disappointing.
Yeah, it did seem repetitive after a while.
Yeah, like you're fighting troll after troll, and they all look the same, just with different colours. And a lot of the attack visuals from the old games, 1 through to 3, Ascension and whatnot, were beautiful. You had that big string of red when you throw an attack.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that would have definitely benefited the game more, is keeping that as a part of it, even while still having the runic attacks.
Yeah, like if the axe had a bit more of a blue string behind it, just to make it have that arcane sort of look. It'd look a lot nicer.
Yeah.
But little details as well were awesome. The way the sea moved when you rode through it, the splash when you throw the axe was just beautiful to me. Like, you didn't get much of that in the old games because it was, your weapons always stayed with you, that sort of thing.
And the consoles at that time weren't as powerful, so it was harder to make the whole environment react to what the player chooses to do.
For sure, like visually, it was beautiful. Graphics were beautiful, landscape was beautiful. All of that was just absolutely stunning. It was just missing that one visual aspect of, different boss designs, and that fluidness with the axe attacks.
Yeah. I did like in it that if you were to throw the axe against a wall, you could see it actually chipped part of the environment to some degree. Obviously, that would regenerate as soon as you left the area, but it definitely makes things feel more real when the environment around you changes and reacts based on what you do.
There's something similar in the old games. Was if you hit a wall with your blades of chaos, it would make a spark. You wouldn't be able to see a chip come out, but it would make a spark. So
yeah,
I get the chip looks nice, but the spark was enough. But it's still visually visually nice, very nice.
Yeah. Obviously, I also want to talk the landscape as well, even though you've mentioned it. I think there was a lot of work put in, especially in Midgard, because that is the biggest realm you have, and the best thing about it is seeing Jormunganda in the background, and he's always moving, always doing something, and I think, obviously, he's my favourite character in the game. He's massive, as Mamiya says, he's a sparkling conversationalist, and that is my favourite line in the game. And yeah, the way that you can always see things in the distance, very detailed, is simply beautiful to me.
It was a very alive landscape, and as I said, when you roll and you see the water move, and Jormungandr in the background moving around, the crows, the seagulls. We all tried to hit the seagulls at least.
Oh,
once.
Absolutely. Trodden on a frog or two.
Yeah, it was all very alive.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously the other realms, gotta say something. Hell, I do like that as part of the story you go to a deeper part into it, it sort of reminds you that the greater realm of it is a lot larger than what you see in the first few areas of the game. And I like that. It sort of expands it, and obviously you cannot go back where you were, but it's still done very well.
I just felt I felt like Helheim and all them other realms, I forget some of the names, could have been a bit bigger.
I think it could have done with a bit more put into it.
Yeah, like Helheim, I felt like, with those two sections of the game that you've got to be there, they were very straightforward. That first section where you got to go get the gatekeeper's heart it was like walking in a straight line. That's basically what you did.
Even if there wasn't any objectives, it would have been cool to just have a bit more of the map that you can walk and see more. Obviously, it is a very work-intensive game, so I can understand there has to be limitations to what they could do, but even if it had some sort of free camera where you could explore the realm a bit more, it would be really, I think, beneficial to the whole realm situation.
Well, it's like Jotunheim. We go to Jotunheim once. Is it Jotunheim? It's Jotunheim.
Yeah.
You go there once and you're just walking straight, It would have been nice as an aspect after you finish the game and you're in your free room that you can go there, walk through, do a big, down all the canyons and whatnot, like just to explore more of it.
Yeah.
In that one crucial part of the game, that the walking in the straight line was okay, but they should have added more in the free roam aspect.
Yeah, I think the fact that even though there isn't a lot to see while you are in Jotunheim, it's the fact that you cannot go back there at all is a bit disappointing in my eyes.
Definitely. The look, what's that one realm you go to with the elves? What's the name of that?
With the elves?
Yeah.
Alfheim.
Alfheim looked, absolutely beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
All the overgrown vines and whatnot was just, that was stunning. Again, could have been a bit larger. Midgard even could have been a bit larger.
I hope that in the following games, the maps will be larger.
Yeah, I'd love to see, how I would love to see in the new game that does come out, Ragnarok. I'd love to see what Valhalla would look like if they can add it into the story.
Definitely.
Because I reckon that would be beautiful, and Asgard as well. Is that Asgard? Asgard, where all the gods live.
Yeah.
That would look even better, and if they add that in, that would be bloody awesome.
Definitely. So the next thing I just want to briefly talk about is sound design. Now, the music, I think it was good, but when it comes to most games, I don't really tend to pay much attention towards music. That's just how I am. But the voice acting, I think, is done very well.
The music matched, your location. I think it's been a while since I've played a bit of it, but the music matched most of the areas. There wasn't it wasn't like, say, Bloodborne, where you reach a boss area and like it was very subtle.
It was more for the cutscenes.
Yeah, it was more for the cutscenes, more for entrances. The voice acting was done perfectly. The voice actor that played Kratos, I can't remember his name, but he did very well. He kept that. It was a bit deeper than the original because he's older now, and that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
Atreus's voice actor played the kid very well.
Sure. I think he did that perfectly.
Not sure if he's a kid or not himself. If he is,
pretty sure he is.
Yeah, and little sound effects like when you throw your axe and it lands in the water, the splash. That sort of thing was really good.
Yeah.
Walking, jumping, all those sound effects were decent.
Yeah, definitely. The bit I always have to talk about is Jormunganda. Now, he is my favourite character. It's just this big giant who could kill you in the blink of an eye. And he's a friendly. The way his voice sounds, the really deep rumble, is very fitting for something so big. So I think I don't think they could have done that any better.
I do like when with the voice acting, the little when you're on the boat and Mimir is telling you little stories. I reckon that is a very nice touch. It's like you never runs out of stories. You can just sit there and listen to them all day.
They had the best voice actor they could have picked for Mimir.
Oh, definitely. And as a fan of a lot of Norse mythology, a lot of the stories were very accurate to the original Norse mythological stories that were generated by the Vikings and whatnot too.
Yeah.
So they did very well with their historical accuracy when it comes to the voice acting and all that.
And they do it right to tell you why you shouldn't like the Aesir gods. It reminds you that, sure, they are deemed as gods, but they're not necessarily actually gods. And they're just basically horrible people who have too much power.
And I've just got to point out how the voice actor who voiced Boulder, his voice was perfect for the character. The sound, how you just when someone talks, you can just tell by the sound of their voice whether they're going to be a bad guy or they're not very nice. The sound was just perfect. The tone of the voice was just perfect for who Boulder was.
It showed off that he was extremely arrogant and thought basically he was everything, and so it sort of was done perfectly so that you knew you weren't supposed to like him, as I said.
For sure.
So now the story. So personally for this story, I do prefer Kratos as he is now. It's the first time I played any of the games, but when I went back and played God of War 3, I because all I knew was Kratos as he is now, I couldn't get into the older one as much, and I think it would have to be the opposite for you.
I do miss angry Kratos. Like it was a lot. It was a bit more emotion. And when you get to parts in the original games, when like in Ascension, when he relived killing his wife and daughter or being with his wife and daughter, you could see he was a man. But the anger behind the old Kratos was I personally found a bit nicer than the Kratos we have now, with withheld, controlling, and I do like the personal character development of now that he's a father again. He doesn't want the same thing to happen, trying to control it a bit more. I just miss very angry Kratos.
I think being as angry as he was a lot more terrifying, because when you are truly furious and all you can think about is killing your enemy, basically, it means you've got nothing to lose. So it does make him more scary. However, at that point, he had no honor. And he was killing innocent people even while he was saying how he regrets having to kill innocent people. But he was still sort of doing that.
I think in the end, it's, back in the days of Spartans and Athenians and all that sort of mythological era, they were all very kill anything, and that was their honor. They were doing it for their country. So I get what you mean by the sense that it's not honorable. It wouldn't be honourable today, but back then they believed it to be honourable in the sense of they're doing it for their country. Like Spartans wanted to kill everything, and that was their sense of honour.
To a degree, I do definitely agree, but the type of thing I'm looking at is how during the story he has to get a certain girl out of prison, and then almost immediately after he ties her to something which literally rips her to shreds. And so that to me just it sort of soured my view of him quite a bit, and that particular moment was where I think I sort of decided I don't like that Kratos.
He had a goal in mind. I do know the part when you're in Poseidon's temple, and his wife, that's the part you're talking about. I remember that very well.
he had a goal in mind, and he didn't care what he had to do to achieve that goal, which was kill every god. And so I get it wasn't very honourable. This poor woman's been dragged around, having to be pulled to shreds. But he does have a better sense of maturity and composure in the new games. So the personal development for me was good.
Yeah, I think if he hadn't developed into what he is now, I don't know I would like the games half as much as I do.
I
Seeing how he has grown, I like.
I do understand that, and that is a good point. I don't know. I found playing Angry Kratos a bit more fun.
Yeah, I think in some ways it definitely was better, especially the use of magic in the old ones. I think if he still had some magical ability, it would be really cool.
Yeah, like he's still got his magical abilities in the new one with his runic attacks, but it's hard to describe the way the magic was done even without the blades help. Like it was, you could summon different beasts to fight for you, or you could unleash this big tornado at the start before you lose all your powers. Like it was just, I feel like the magical attacks or the runic attacks in the older games were a lot nicer than the new ones.
Yeah.
A lot more destructive.
Also the fact that you have more weapons that you unlock throughout the story. In the new one, you do unlock the Blades of Chaos after a while, but in the old one, and I've only played God of War 3 from before, the fact that you end up with 4 or 5 different weapons, I think is really good.
Yeah, like you got your Blade of Olympus, your Blades of Exile in the third one, or Chaos or Athena. They changed throughout the game, and that's the one thing I didn't like in the new one, because I'm a hardcore fan of the old God of Wars. He finished the game with the Blades of Exile. I get that the Blades of Chaos are the more famous name, but he should have kept the original, the last name in the new one was the Blades of Exile. That's just me being a perfectionist, but
yeah. See, the story element of it would make more sense because that's what it last was chronologically. However, I do have to say I prefer the name Blade of Chaos.
For sure.
It's a much better name.
The Blades of Chaos sound a lot nicer, but this is me being a perfectionist. But the Hades blades, can't remember what they were called. I think they were Claws of the Underworld.
Something like that.
They were aesthetically very beautiful. Purple with the claw, it was magnificent. And now, you've gone from 4 collectible weapons to 1 weapon you collect, and it's just not. It just takes that element away.
Yeah, I think they could benefit with some new weapons in the next one. I think, even though that it is a lot of coding, and I do get that, I think it would be good to have just one extra little thing just to vary the combat system a bit further.
I forgot what I was going to say. The simplicity of the old games was very aesthetically pleasing. Like when you jump in, you press square, like not button mashing, because you can change up, square, triangle.
Yeah, and it has combos.
Yeah, like the simplicity of the old games was just so. It was a bit nicer than the RPG element.
Yeah,
it was. The new games, not I wouldn't say it's technical gameplay, but it's I do miss the simplicity of having the still camera, even though it was an older generation having that still camera. It just for me was a bit nicer than this new one.
I personally do prefer the newer one. It gives me a bit more freedom. Like when it's a fixed camera, there are things you want to look at which you physically can't.
Yeah.
I think it is a better system. However, I think it's more what you're used to.
Yeah, it is a used to thing for me. Like I enjoyed the fixed camera, even though it was an older generation aspect. The new free roam camera is still lovely. Like I still get to sit there and turn around and look at things I want to look at. the views and whatnot, and so yeah, just for me, it was a bit strange, but different. Not complaining, but not agreeing with it either. Like it was a mix and match for me.
Yeah, a little bit hit, little bit miss.
Yeah.
I do love the inclusion of the runic attacks, like the amount that there are and the differences between each one. I think was very well done. However, as we said earlier, I think if there was a bit more of that magic and color to the weapons, like there was in the old game, then it would be perfect. Having either one is good, but having both would be great. So, yeah, it's again little bit hit, little bit miss. So back onto the story. I think, for me personally, there was quite a few twists that I didn't see quite happening, but more specifically, the way you watch Kratos grow and him and Atreus getting closer, I do love. But throughout most of the story, I found Atreus to be very annoying.
He was rather annoying. For me, the story, I guess the story, most of the way through, he tells me he's a god, he becomes a dick.
I hated that, by the way. I hate good guys going bad, so that for me pissed me off. I wanted to slap Kratos, slap Atreus from here to every other realm and back.
It just, I guessed everything at every turn, and it wasn't much to go with, Boulder being after the mother and not those two was something I actually guessed right at the start, and I didn't feel there was enough to the story. It was take mother, throw her off the top of the mountain. Like, you meet Mimir, Brock and Sindri, you meet them on the way, have a few battles with Boulder. I saw all that coming. So whereas with the older games, like, I didn't expect a number 3 to find Pandora, or I didn't expect a number 2 for you to go back in time to get the Titans, or number 1 for you to take the throne of God of War. Like, so, it's in the title, but I didn't expect it to like that. And it was just, this one was just so predictable in the sense of, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, as I said, like, certain things I did see coming, but a lot of it I didn't. And I guess more to the point, when you finish the game and you understand the story, lines said throughout the game make so much more sense. Like, for example, the first thing with Baldur saying, I thought you'd be bigger, I still could have believed that as being the gods from the old land some way messing with them, even though they're all dead. It sort of, to me, it still seemed a possibility, but then it made a lot more sense when you find out that they weren't looking for Kratos and they didn't even know who the hell he was.
But it didn't. I get what you mean. Because the wife was a giant, but giant in Norse mythology doesn't mean large.
Yeah,
they can be large.
I guess that shows that Baldur is a bit stupid, though.
He's very stupid, and I mean, I get if you're missing the his obsession with wanting to feel was. I get that if that's been taken away from you when you were a child. I get when you're an adult you don't want to feel that, but as soon as you feel pain, I'd want that back. Like I wouldn't want to feel, Pain sucks. No one wants that.
I guess to a degree, though, because he lived like that for over 100 years, and not just that, but he couldn't taste things anymore. He couldn't feel even the temperature of certain rooms. He couldn't feel anything, and that's why when he says to his mother, Freya, when he says that he would rather be dead than to live the rest of his life never feeling anything, I actually do agree with him. Sure, pain sucks, but without it, you wouldn't feel alive.
I'd say I personally, I'd sacrifice all of that for not, like, it just make a few things a bit easier. But yeah, I get the story element that he wants to feel, and why he resents his mother for taking that away from him. I understand that, and it was a very good aspect. The aspect, the all the battles all came down to the part of the story, and it was very pleasing in some aspect, but just so straightforward, so predictable. It's like every other RPG you ever played.
Yeah, as I said, some of it was predictable, but I guess more for you. You play, I guess, a wider range of games, so you can sort of see some of those things coming easier.
Oh, I always play a game for the story. Like I'm not a fan of all these multiplayer games coming out now. I always play a game for the storyline. If it's got a terrible storyline, it's got a terrible storyline. I don't like the game if it's got a terrible storyline. It can look like 8-bit Mario, and I'd still play it if it had a good story.
Exactly. The story is the most important thing for any game, same as it is for movies. So, just to briefly summarize part of the combat specifically, having the addition of a shield and then being able to block and parry, I think that is slightly better than the old game, because it gives you more variation to your gameplay.
The shield was a good touch. I don't know, we didn't have shields in the original. In the original, 6 of them. But the shield was a nice touch. I didn't utilize it a lot. I'm a heavy Dark Souls player, so for me it was dodge, not shield.
Yeah, the fact as well though that you can block some attacks but have to dodge other attacks, that added an extra degree of difficulty to it, that you had to learn how to time the dodges perfectly so that you wouldn't die.
I did like when you were doing hand-to-hand combat, he would utilise the shield as a weapon during the hand-to-hand combat. That was a nice touch, that you throw one punch and the shield opens.
Definitely.
That was a good touch. So the shield was a good idea, a very good idea.
Absolutely. So the different enemies was great, and we'll get onto that in a minute. But as well with the combat, having armors which different sets have different effects on the gameplay, especially in New Game Plus, it adds a few new armors which give a lot more different powers. Each separate armor will affect your gameplay slightly differently, and I love that aspect to it.
I honestly didn't pay much attention to the armor. It's really bad when I play a game. I go for brute force, so defense and armor ratings I don't pay a lot of attention to unless I absolutely have to. And in this game, I found I didn't really. It wasn't a necessity. I paid a little bit of attention. I got the best armor set I could find going through the game, but I never really paid much attention to luck or vitality, like the cooldown. Like I didn't pay a lot of attention because it's just brute force for me. Like dodge. I spend a lot more time in battles because of it, which I do. I understand that was the problem was because I didn't pay much attention to the armor, but that was okay. So I felt the armor, the way they did the armor, where you didn't have to pay a lot of attention to it, was good. But I found after a while all the armor sort of looked a little the same. They had a little different color, little different aesthetic engraving here and there. But at the end of the day, I felt they all very similar in their look.
They were quite similar in a few areas, but in terms of stat, luck I never really concentrated on, because when you replay it and you replay the story, resources do nothing for you. So that wasn't as important to me. Vitality and defense I would put quite a bit of effort into so that I could take more hits, because I wasn't the best at dodging and still aren't really. But as well as that, the enchantments that you add to your armor, that one I really concentrated on. Like, once I finally got them, I equipped 3, which reduced the amount of rage that you use. by a total of 45%. That type of thing I put a lot of effort into because it affected the gameplay a lot more than just the armors themselves. And so I looked at those and having the right talisman, that type of thing I did put effort into, but the armors themselves didn't have as much of an effect as the enchantments.
Yeah, see, I just never worried about it, so I can't really say much more about it except for the fact that they could have put a bit more detail into changing how they looked a bit more.
Yeah.
As I said, most of them to me looked the same with a few different touches here and there and a colour change. So yeah.
Yeah. So the enemy design, I think there is a great bit of range for how many enemies there are, and each enemy having a different kill scene is good, but there isn't a lot of variation for it, and I found that slightly disappointing. Is most of the enemies you face only have one variation of their kill scene, and very, very few have two, and none of them have more. So if there was a few other kill scenes that could have been put into it, I think it really would have added a lot to the game.
See, when I talk about enemy design, I talk about the lack of enemy design. Like, there was some good variations where you had your fire dudes, which you couldn't use your axe for. You could only use your axe for, but then you had your frost dudes that you couldn't use your axe for. The variations of smaller enemies were all right. You had your elves, your little dark elves. The one enemy design that I really upset about was the boss design. You had
the trolls,
and those big giant things that aren't with the teeth. I can't remember what they're called, but
the ogres and that.
The ogre looking things. Like they all look the same with the colour change, and the reskin after reskin after reskin was very upsetting when you go from a game with so much detail into every boss to the same boss constantly with the same kill scene with the same attacks. Even those ancients, what do you call them? Are they called the ancients? Where you throw the axe at their heart when they shoot the beam.
Yeah.
Even they all look the same. Like it was very disappointing.
There wasn't enough of the simpler design changes. I think it could have done with a lot more work into that. And because obviously I like epic battles and that type of thing, I think having more kill scenes really would have been so much better for this game, because it is known for its brutal ways, and the older ones, for what I have seen of other people playing them, really fed a lot more into that side of things, and this one just didn't.
I absolutely miss the unique quick time events. Like, it was a very old mechanic, but because they are all different, and number 3, when you're fighting Poseidon, you rip the little seahorse's jaw off, to when you're fighting Hades and you pull his mask off. Like, all the quick time events were all different, and it just made it a lot more compelling. And when they've gone to this one with no quick time events, every troll has the same death.
That I was very upset about.
It was very disappointing. I had high hopes for this game, and I was let down with the enemy design and all that.
Yeah, that is probably the biggest problem I had with the game. Like, I love the game, and I've actually completed the story around 5 times, and I'm even playing some again for one of my streams on Twitch. Follow me there. I still love the game and I still want to play it, but I did feel like that just got a bit repetitive, that particular part of it, and it was disappointing. So the Valkyries, in design, they all pretty much looked the same, and the only differences were the types of attacks they did, which obviously, like, that is a good variation, but I feel like there could have been slightly more different details to change for one Valkyrie to the next, while still keeping them looking similar as you would expect them to have to.
Well, with the Valkyries, they could have had a bit more of a story to just go fight,
Oh, absolutely. They should have had more impact on the world around them.
Yeah, it should have been. I personally believe it should have been a part of the big story. Where you had to, get the Valkyries to help you fight the gods at the end, like something like that. Like they could have played a much larger part in the game than just little side bosses. And their combat was very. They had like one different attack between each of them, and that was it. You get to the queen, and she's got all the attacks from the other ones, but you've learned how to dodge them. So that made the queen very anticlimactic when you got to it.
I personally don't much like the idea of having them join you in the combat during this game. I think it would be good if you could have them help you battle the gods in a later game. But for this game, even just something as simple as once you've killed a certain number of Valkyries and you go to Helheim, you see a Valkyrie there near the gates or something. A tiny little detail like that would have added a huge amount of importance onto these missions for me.
Well, they wouldn't have gone to Helheim. They would have gone to Valhalla because they were warriors and they died in battle.
But that's the thing, is they sought the dead. They're the ones that sought the dead from Helheim and send them to Valhalla. And it's that's sort of what I mean. So if you had them just watching over the dead in Helheim, I think that would have made them seem more real to the game.
I think we've got different reviews on the Valkyrie, which is okay. But from my view of the Valkyries, they were female warriors that fought for the gods. They didn't watch the dead. So
it is what they're saying in the story.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm going off of. In actual Norse mythology, maybe it would be different.
Yeah.
But in terms of the game's lore, it says they are the ones who sought the dead and make sure they go to the right place.
I thought that's what the gatekeeper was for, but
the gatekeeper is to keep the alive out of Helheim.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, as I said, this little parts of it, I just found a little underwhelming. The other side missions, just going and collecting stuff for Brock and Sindri, I actually didn't like those. Very specifically, did not like them.
I was very underwhelming, all the side missions. Like, you can go and do this for that ghost or this for that ghost. Like, it was just very... There was no... I don't usually do side missions. In this game, I was a bit keen on doing the side missions. I was like, I'm going to do all the side... I did some of the side missions. They were all the same. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, it was just anticlimactic, repetitive stuff. And that was another letdown.
Yeah, it was a big letdown, even for me. And, I'm not a fussy person when it comes to most games. But the particular side missions just... I think they were among some of the worst I've had in games. I still play them, absolutely, because you get good things from it. But I really think that is something that should be done better in the next game.
See, I didn't even find the rewards for doing the side missions all that great. Like, I don't know, like a new piece of armor or something new for your axe. Like, that would have been so much nicer than what you got.
The one mission which I did find most worth it is when you go to find the body of the captain's son, the son that stabbed his father in the back. When you go there, you get a talisman, which is the Shattered Gauntlet of Ancients, I think, or something like that. And that particular one does a lot of damage, and it's really good for combat. And that is the best reward from any of the side missions for me. And the other ones are only worth it on the first playthrough. So if you go into New Game Plus, you're wasting your time.
I did enjoy that one side mission. I did enjoy it because it was very good. It was a very nice story. His son's killed him, but he still wants to find his body because that's his son. That was a very nice touch. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, because he expresses how happy he at least went out fighting, so he'd be in Valhalla.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the side missions underwhelming. Most things in this game was a big letdown, in my opinion.
Yeah, as I said, certain points I am less fussy about, but I definitely see a lot of ways that they could definitely have improved quite significantly, just certain aspects of the game. And I genuinely am super excited for the next games. For this game specifically, I watched Jacksepticeye on YouTube playing through it, and that's how I knew of the story. And that is pretty much, I think, the main reason I decided to get a PlayStation instead of an Xbox was to play God of War.
Shout out to Jacksepticeye. He's an awesome YouTuber.
Absolutely, love him.
I
think he introduced me to a lot of games, and so I owe that to him.
For sure, like a lot of the games I play, he like Skate 3 was one of the ones I played because of him.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people on Facebook. They're like, they better do this different, do that different. I'm not going to play it because and they whinge and complain about what's wrong with it, what's going to be wrong with this newer one. But at the end of the day, we can whinge and complain all we want. We're all going to play it.
Yep.
I was disappointed with this one, but at the end of the day, I'm going to play the next one.
Absolutely.
Because I'm a fan of the genre and I'm a fan of the game. Like, there's no, I'll complain and I'll whinge, but I'm still going to play the next one and the next one and the next one. Like,
exactly. Like, even with games that you see a lot of problems with, you're always going to play it just to see what happens next in the story or whatever else. And anybody who says, "Oh, this disappointed me, I'm not going to play this game again," is lying through their teeth. They're going to.
They're definitely going to play the next one.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. So that will conclude today's episode. This game was the first I wrote a review on for my blog. At first, it was the very first opinion I put out online, and so I thought this is going to be a particularly important episode to film, and that is why I have my friend here. So thank you for joining, Blaze.
You're all good, man. You're all good. I'm a big fan of the channel, a big fan of the game. I was happy to be here.
Yeah, I look forward to having you again. And yeah, I guess that's all there really is left to say. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you next time. Signing off.